Hello, everybody. I am so honored to be here with you today, and thank you for that wonderful introduction. We're going to talk about how IT and security quietly impacts the business. Now, when I say quietly, I want you to know that's a good thing. Think about the lights, the cameras, the sound here, everything that's connected here is working seamlessly. You can't see all the people that have made this experience that we're having, but they absolutely make a significant difference, not just the front line. And I bet many of you in your organizations feel like you're not seen day to day, but just like the experience we're having and everything seamless here, you matter. And I hope that you absolutely feel that way. And if not, by the end of this time together, you will. Now, we're all on this island together, as this event is all about TV reality. And on this island, something is very relevant to where we are at work. Think about, you have people all over an island, you have people surviving, you've got threats, you've got fear, you've got alliances. Survivors are planning, they've got skills, they've got goals. You have people that are on the other side of the island, they don't communicate to anyone. They don't actually work with anybody. They stay in their silos. Does that sound familiar? Yeah? So there's such an incredible analogy here with Survivor, a show, but to the organizations that we work at. Now there's one thing that actually is the difference for those surviving and thriving, both on that island and in the organization. There's one word that makes a difference. Yell out, what is one word that you think is the difference between surviving and not? One word. Trust. Trust. Tell me more.
If I trust the people around me, I can get through hard things in the moment.
If people trust you, and you trust them, you can get through those difficult times. Yes. What was the other word someone said? Communication and community. Absolutely. Communication is the biggest hurdle that companies have among organizations and with their customers, and even on this island where people are communicating, they don't even understand what each other's saying. Isn't that relevant to real life? Now there's one word in addition to those, and it is absolutely, it's part of our DNA. We can't live without this. And that word is connection. Connection is it's part of the community. It's why we're here today. It's the connection that you're making with people that can help you when you go back to the office. It's connection that actually is why customers love your brand. It's the connection that makes employees stay with you. They're loyal to you. And it's that connection that makes the competitors envious. And we're going to talk about that because there is a big secret to actually making that all happen. And when we are done today, you're going to not only know that one secret, you're going to absolutely see it. It's always been there, but you probably didn't notice it because there's so much noise in the world. But this one secret is going to be your game changer. Now, you talked about community, you talked about communication. We talked about all the things on the island that you struggle with. And we're not talking about, by the way, connection, just the infrastructure. It is not just about how the different systems talk to each other, right? We're talking about the human in addition to that. But so much gets in the way. Well, let me explain further about what gets in the way and what is the difference that makes people feel like they belong to the brand. So meet Kristen. Kristen is the one that is helping her team. Now, they are part of a contact center, and they are a survey team. They actually call customers. This is a true story. They call customers before the contract is going to be up. And they find out how well is that relationship going. So this is thousands of phone surveys. And they'll say to the customer, how well is it going? What's the level of effort in working with us? And there's a score, 1 to 10. And then they're asking them, why is it good? Why is it difficult? What is the friction, if there's friction? How likely are you going to recommend our company to your partners, to your colleagues? Net Promoter Score. And the reps, the agents, are all writing this down as they're actually talking to the customers. And that's not easy to listen and actually have to record these answers. And they've got multiple screens. It takes a lot of skill. So they're doing all this every single day, talking to customers, because we know that the voice of customer, that feedback, is gold. Now what happens is, Kristen, the manager, says, you know, we're getting so much feedback, but what good is it if the people that have to do something with it can't get it? What good is it if it's sitting in the local file? So instead, she says, well, for us to make our metrics, we have to make sure that we're fixing the pain points that the customers are telling us. So she calls her IT and security friends and says, hey, I need your help. They said, yeah, what's up? What do you need? She says, I've got all this gold, all these gems of feedback from the customers. We need an easy solution to get this information to the local sales offices who manage those customers and help them get ahead of the friction, of the frustration, and celebrate what you're doing well also. In fact, it's more than that. A lot of times customers are saying legal in their feedback, security breach, all these words, these buzzwords that you have to act quickly. It can't be days, it's got to be immediate. So she's telling her IT and security and technical friends, so I need a solution to capture this information and be able to automatically take those calls, the recording and the comments and those ratings, and get it to the people that could do something with this information, the sales offices, the product teams, etc. So he says, I got good news. She's like, you do? Yes, I got good news for you. We already bought the solution. Really? What solution did you buy? And he goes on to explain, well, the team in the New York office actually gave the requirements, and we got the solution. We vetted it out with a bunch of vendors, and we got it. And guess what? We're rolling it out across the whole company. It's coming to you in 6 months. Kristen's thinking, 6 months? And that solution does not solve our business unit needs. And in fact, because we are talking to the customer every day and getting that feedback, we cannot afford not to act on it quickly. And the solution, that's a problem. Kristen wasn't there at the table to give what her needs were. And so you can imagine the friction and the frustration that her team is feeling because they can't do their job effectively. Fast forward time, Kristen does get the solution, but is over a year later. And the money and the time that had to go in, they had to go back to the vendor and renegotiate the contract. It ended up costing more money, and the solution was delayed. Now, my question to you is, what's the problem? What do you hear? Someone, yell it out. What do you hear from that story? What does Kristen feel? What does the organization feel from this? What's the problem?
IT's not working.
IT's not working. Say more.
They're solving a problem that might not solve everybody's problem.
So IT is solving a problem that is not solving everyone's problem.
Siloed and no communication. Lack of communication,
Silos. Yes. Yes, silos and the communication breakdowns. Exactly. One more?
They're also trying to solve a problem that they don't fully understand.
Oh, yes. They're solving a problem they don't really understand. Does that sound familiar where you work? Because it does everywhere I've been. So yes, these are all very real challenges that organizations face. And it's not just IT's fault. It's not security's fault. It's not Kristen's fault in this story. It's the fact that people are pointing fingers at each other. There's actually a lot of blame that happens in organizations because, for many reasons, fear of loss of job, fear of tons of reasons. And the other problem is that nobody's really owning the problem. No one's really owning the silos, the communication, the lack of understanding. Somebody could have said, with Kristen's story, you know what? Before we invest in a solution, let's make sure that we're talking to other stakeholders. That didn't happen. And that's relevant. I don't care what company you work for. This is what happens in companies all over the world. And it's controllable. Now, as I mentioned, that this is one true story, and I know many more. But the research is also showing that consumer satisfaction and experiences has been declining. The trend is going in the wrong direction. Raise your hand. Are you surprised by this trend? Anybody? Yeah, as consumers, you probably feel that when you're calling the airlines, calling for help, and you're going through this IVR flow and you can't get to a person, or the chatbots are just nonstop, can't get to a human, right? And so the decline in customer experience results is very telling. But here's the great news. There's good news and great news. The good news is that doing customer experience right can be your competitive advantage. And the great news is that it's in your control. You can turn the trend around where you work so that customers absolutely love your brand. Competitors become envious. It is in your control. Now, there are a lot of answers to this, but before we start solving, it's important to understand when I say doing customer experience right, what does that even mean? One person, tell me, what does doing customer experience right mean to you? Anybody, yell it out.
Caring.
Caring. Say the other one.
Do the right thing.
Do the right thing. Do the right thing. Do the right thing when no one's looking, right? Integrity. In Kristen's example, right? People could have actually gone above and beyond instead of just looking at this is the process and you cannot bend it whatsoever. Well, doing the right thing is saying, this is protocol, but there is a way to solve this so we don't have to go spend more money and prolong the time she gets that solution. We can there is possibilities, and everyone has the ability to make that connection of what can you do, how can you care more. Now, when it comes to doing customer experience right, there is the customer internal. There's also the customer that's external. And it's important that you understand that, because when you say customer, many of you might say, I don't talk to the end buyer. That's not my job. But at the end of the day, you do impact that end customer in what you do. So let's start with the internal customer, because many of you might relate to that. The internal stakeholders are absolutely relying on you. Now you think about the internal journey. When people are coming into a company, right, there's that recruitment, and then there's that onboarding. I don't know about you, but onboarding should, and I never should on myself or others, but I am going to say, should be easy and seamless and frictionless. I remember I went to my first day on a job, I showed up, and I'm here, and there's no computer, there's no phone, there's no nothing on the desk. I didn't get my equipment for at least a week. Now what happened? Well, HR and the tech department, they forgot to communicate. So I was ineffective for over a week, probably even more. So onboarding, think about how much you impact that early stage when employees come on board. Think about even your own teams. Forget about the whole organization. Think about even in your own unit, how much you're equipping them and connecting them to the company on day one. Employees go through a journey. So everywhere, from beginning to end, that whole journey is what they remember. It's what they tell others about. Training. Think about how much you're impacting their ability to get trained and all the systems that have to be connected. And when people leave the company, think about how much you have to disconnect, but in a caring way. People leave the company, this is a true story, that HR said to the employee, we have to do cuts. There was a board decision. But forgot to tell the technical team. So what happened? Her staff didn't even get to know that she was cut. And they find out because they went to Slack and they went to go message her, and Slack showed can't communicate, gone. How does that make the internal team feel? Talk about morale, talk about fragmentation, talk about disconnect. So I want you to remember that customer experience, the internal experience, how much is affected by what you do. The other side of customer experience is the ones that are paying the bills. They go through a journey. How they learn about your products and services, marketing, huge impact on that customer experience. How they buy, think about e-commerce, how much you impact the ability to buy safely with confidence. The website, is that easy to use? Is it difficult to find what you're looking for? Learn, buy, get, use. pay. We know that there's a lot of security at play, and if you can't pay easily, so many times I've gone onto a website and I want to buy that item and it says, can't add to cart, or can't enter that credit card. I'm like taking my credit card and saying, please, I'm willing to give you my money. And it won't go through, and then I call customer service, and then I have to go through this whole rigmarole, and it shouldn't happen with friction. So pay has to be easy. And then service, getting help. Customer service is essential. Now I want you to realize that customer service and customer experience, they are not the same thing. You enable customer service to be able to take those calls and be able to use technology for tracking. Customer service is a huge part of the customer experience, but it's not the same. There's a whole journey that you have to care for in order to make that experience delightful, that people want to come back and tell others. You impact the internal customer and the external customer. The internal customer, if it's frustrating for them and they can't do their job, it affects the external customer. One affects the other, one fuels the other. And you have a huge, important role in that connection, breaking those silos. In the case of Kristen, in the story, her team wasn't equipped. They didn't have what they needed to do their job. And so what ended up happening is they would basically read from a script instead of having the empathy that's needed on those calls. The person on the other line could hear that lack of enthusiasm and that frustrated agent that's trying to help them and get information and conversation. And so then the customer is not feeling it. And then they tell others. And it's a ripple effect, right? And then you see that people leave, the employees leave, the morale, the customer leaves. It's this spiral. On the flip side, when you have customers, when you have internal customers, when you have your team feel valued, when they have the tools and the technology to do their job efficiently, they're empowered to do their jobs well, with care. They feel connected to the brand because people are listening and giving them the tools to save them time, to be able to really have that conversation with the customer. They feel good. In fact, the customer on the phone feels the smile. So it's important to realize that every single part of the customer journey makes or breaks the experience. The survivors on the island are thrivers, and the brand has so much success because of it. It's all connected. Now, this is not my guess, my hunch from the experiences I have in different companies. There's so much research, just like that trend chart that I showed you, how people are feeling frustrated more than ever. Well, there's new research that's also showing by iSolved, did some employee research, and it shows that when people are feeling valued and equipped to do their job efficiently, and you break the human silos and you break those data silos, they actually enjoy their job and the customer feels it. And so there's so much data. I'm happy to share this with you. The important thing is for you to see that connection of that employee and that end customer. So it sounds so intuitive. I mean, you're probably thinking, yeah, I got it. The employee experience, the end customer who buys your solution, it all makes sense. So then what? Then why is it so hard? What do we do about it? This is not about talking about CX right, thinking about CX right. We're talking about doing CX right. CX, customer experience. I want to make sure I don't throw you off with acronyms. The path forward is back to connection. Now, every letter of connection has significance. Every letter has some strategy behind it. We don't have time to go through every single one, but I'm going to give you at least 3 that when you go back to your office, I want to make sure that you are sharing this with your colleagues. I want to make sure that you are applying what you hear today to make a difference. So, at the end of this, there's going to be a QR code that for you is going to be all the letters and all the secrets behind these light bulbs. But let's start with just a few. One is clarity of goals. When you think about the island survivor, everyone may have different goals on that island. People in your organization have different goals, different agendas. Some have expense reduction. Some have the goal of connectivity. Has to be perfect, no mistakes. That's all they think about. Think about, others have metrics of just revenue, sales, revenue, and those are the numbers and everything else get out of the way. But in reality, when people don't share the customer-centric goals, it's impossible to achieve them. I remember one of the companies I worked for, had a team, and we were responsible for the Net Promoter Score, getting people to recommend, that effort score, making it easy to do business with us, and satisfaction in others. So my team and the executives shared that common goal. The others in the organization did not. So what would happen is I would get a lot of great feedback from surveys, from the chat logs, from social media, from ratings and reviews. I would centralize all that information and bring it to my colleagues and say, hey, website team, customers are getting stuck at this point on the website. Here's some data to prove it. I need your help to fix this. And they would say, great, I'll put it on the list, the priority list, that's this long. I said, but how can you not take this seriously, like right now? Well, I have these goals, I gotta get to them. I know that's important, but we'll get to it. And what happened was I'd go to all these different teams and they'd say, yeah, I'll put you on the list, because they didn't share any of the same KPIs, these key performance indicators, as my team did. So it's really important that when you, as an organization, are trying to serve that customer, it has to be a unified vision. It has to be an alignment around what you're measuring, and everybody has to be responsible for it. The second action in connection is around communication. It has to be proactive. It has to be transparent. When you think about it, actually, with AI being so prevalent now, there's a lot of research out there that customers are not mad about AI and robots. They're accepting, even though they're fearful. what's happening is there's companies that are putting out this automation, but they're not telling customers transparently that this is not a human. That's the problem. And customers are expecting that. The employees are expecting that. That communication is what solidifies those relationships. If you think again about Kristen, where she brings her need to the IT team and security team, and they're like, good news, we've got a solution for you. And another team made that decision of what you need, right? That breakdown in communication is awful. It doesn't work. And that you get to be the glue when that happens. When you see another team making decisions for the whole company, you get to go to other stakeholders and say, we're collecting these requirements. Tell us what you need. Those are your customers. You get to be the glue. You get to be the one who owns the experience for all of the stakeholders. And when you work with those solution providers, you are the glue to them to solve what the organization needs. And so the failure point in Kristen's story is that nobody really owned that experience. It cost the company a lot of money to have to go back to renegotiate in time to get what Kristen needed. And without that information that Kristen had about what the customer's saying, 6 months to a year before that contract is going to be renewed or not renewed, the data is what everybody needs. 6 months doesn't work. The third area of action is the ownership of the experience. The ownership, whether you're a CIO, whether you're anywhere in the C-suite, or you have an intern, contractors, and everyone in between, you have a customer experience job, regardless of title. Let me repeat that. You, regardless of title, have a customer experience role. And it doesn't need to be in your title. In fact, leaders don't need the word leader in their title to be one. But yet what happens is, again, people are pointing fingers. When a problem happens, they're saying, oh, that's the customer service department. No, no more. That's what makes people love your brand. That's what makes the stakeholders want to partner with you. And when something goes wrong, everybody is involved to fix it instead of the blame game. Now, think about the customer journey as I went through before. In order to stop the silos, what you need to do is bring people from the organization to the table. It could be literally the back of a napkin or a whiteboard or someone like me who helps you bring everyone to the table and literally map out how do you want customers to experience your brand. Every interaction point. The reason why that's so important is in reality, people stick to what their job is. They focus on this is their role, and they don't understand the impact to the next person in line. They don't understand the domino effect of where one person begins and one person ends. But when you bring people together and you co-design the customer experience, That's where everybody gets appreciation internally and work better together. Now, today in your organizations, you may already have a journey that customers go through. What I'm encouraging you to do is to optimize it. You're never done. There's a phrase, TAR. Test, analyze, adjust, repeat. So you bring people together, you design the customer experience, you then go validate with real customers that what you designed, does it meet their needs? Because their needs are changing so fast, it's hard to keep up. And then when you get their needs and you understand what they feel, yes, feeling words, and what they need, you come back as a team, the stakeholders across every part of the organization, and you figure out what the gaps are. So what you've designed as an experience and what they told you they need, you go back and you fix those gaps. And you measure what we call moments of truth. In that journey, how easy or difficult is it to accomplish what you needed to do? If it's buying on that e-commerce site, how easy or difficult? And you come back and you problem solve. The journey management is in your hands. You affect every single part of that journey. Please do not wait for a crisis to happen. That's too late. That's chaos. If you plan ahead and you do this, when you get back to the office and you say to the teams, we need to get everybody in the room. We need to plan for that experience. And the experience might be chaos. The experience might be where the worst scenario happens. You plan for that too. But it's not when you're in the chaos that then you think about, oh my God, the journey, what do we do? How do we? That's too late. Have your contingency, have your governance in place to keep it going once you understand that you've designed the journey for the customer and you validate it. Have the governance so that it's not a one and done thing. I leave you with this today. Again, we were on Survivor Island, a reality show at this event, but it's real life. The survivors, those that thrive, the key difference is you. It's not one department. The customers don't care what your org chart is. They don't care about your title. They don't care about your problems. If they buy online and they go and pick up at store, how many times have you ever tried to return something you bought online and you go to the store and they say, sorry, I can't take it. You bought it online. I'm like, what do you mean? Aren't you one company? Sorry, we've got different systems, different. To the customer, they don't care. You've got online goals and offline goals. No, you're one company, and so you have to remember that. You have to remember that no job is beneath you either. There's a picture. Who knows who this is? Yell it out if you do. Anybody know who this is? Yes. Yes, it is. This is Walt Disney. He's picking up trash. Now, some might say the chief in charge is picking up trash. Yes, because he's setting an example for all the characters that walk around Disney. He's setting the tone as a leader. So when you're at your office, if you see the equivalent of trash, if you see the equivalent of problems that may not be your role, roll up your sleeve and dig in. Because at the end of the day, that end customer is affected by you. At the end of the day, you make the difference. Now, there's a lot more to tell you about connection and how you impact the customer experience. We don't have enough time today, but I do have for you a one-pager with deep insights around the connection and what you can go do. And so I encourage you to, I have a QR code here, take out your phones, take this QR code, give me your feedback, feedback's gold, and I'm giving you some gold back. I'm giving you the connection framework. I encourage you to give this document to everybody you work with, the people that couldn't be here today. Help them understand whether they're an intern, middle management, finance, legal, IT, security, marketing, sales. Give them this document. Help them understand how they have a customer experience role, because that is going to help make your company the brand that customers love, the brand that employees want to work for, and the brand that competitors envy. Thank you.